A black lawyer is passed up for a promotion in favor of a white lawyer. The black lawyer realizes that her racist manager has secretly been sabotaging her career, and she vows to get justice. Alicia sat at her desk, the late afternoon sunlight streaming through the tall windows of Bainbridge and Associates. Her fingers tapped rhythmically on the desk, the adrenaline from the court victory still pumping through her veins. She had just secured a major win for the firm, one that no one else thought was possible. "That was brilliant," her assistant Marissa said, poking her head into the office. "Everyone's talking about it. You've got to be next for partner, right?" Alicia smiled, though the knot of tension in her stomach didn't loosen. "Let's hope so," Marissa stepped in, lowering her voice. "It's not about hope, Alicia. You've done more than enough." Alicia nodded but didn't respond. It wasn't that simple. She had seen other talented attorneys, ones who looked like her, get passed over for reasons that no one could quite explain. Maybe today's announcement would be different. "I'll see you at the meeting," Marissa said before leaving Alicia to her thoughts. In the conference room, the air buzzed with nervous energy. Promotions were always a big deal at Bainbridge and Associates, and today was no exception. The room was filled with lawyers, some newer, some seasoned, but everyone had the same anticipatory look on their faces. David Preston, one of the senior partners, stood at the front of the room, adjusting his tie and glancing over a few papers. Alicia could feel his eyes sweep past her, as if she wasn't even there. "Thank you all for coming," David began, his voice smooth but distant. "We have a lot to celebrate today, especially with some of the incredible work being done here at the firm." Alicia exchanged a glance with Jenna Patel, who sat beside her. Jenna raised her eyebrows slightly, a silent acknowledgement of the formality that always preceded these announcements. They had both been through this before. "First, let me commend Alicia King," David continued. "Her victory in the Anderson case was nothing short of remarkable." Alicia sat up a little straighter, feeling the brief flicker of recognition. Maybe this was it. "Now, on to today's promotions," David said, shifting the tone. "It's always tough to choose when we have so many excellent candidates." Alicia's heart pounded in her chest. She had been waiting for this moment for years. She had put in the work, outperformed her peers, and earned the respect of her colleagues. "And we are pleased to announce that Evan Grant will be joining us as the newest partner at Bainbridge and Associates." Alicia blinked. "Evan Grant?" Applause erupted around her, but it sounded muted in Alicia's ears. Evan, who had joined the firm only 3 years ago, stood up from his seat, shaking hands with David and smiling like he'd expected this all along. Alicia stared straight ahead, forcing herself to keep a neutral expression. Jenna shifted beside her, glancing at Alicia, her own shock visible. "Unbelievable," Jenna whispered under her breath. Alicia didn't respond, her thoughts racing. She had led the biggest cases, pulled off the most challenging wins. She had been told more than once that she was on track for partnership, and now this? Evan wasn't even on the same level as her. The meeting broke up shortly after, but Alicia didn't move. She watched as people filed out, congratulating Evan on their way. Her fingers drummed against the table again, this time with a simmering frustration. Jenna lingered behind. "Alicia, you should talk to David. This is ridiculous." Alicia shook her head, standing up slowly. "No, I will." David's office was at the far end of the corridor, tucked away in a corner that felt too distant from the rest of the firm. Alicia knocked once, then pushed the door open. David looked up, surprised but quickly masking it. "Alicia, what can I do for you?" She stepped inside, keeping her posture straight, her voice calm. "I need to understand what happened with the promotion decision." David leaned back in his chair, folding his hands together. "Look, Alicia, I know this is disappointing. You're an incredible lawyer, and we're lucky to have you here." "That's not an answer," she said, her tone still even but firm. "I've put in the work. My performance has been above expectations, and yet I'm being passed over again." David hesitated, then stood up, walking to the window as if avoiding her gaze. "It's not just about performance. We have to consider the bigger picture. You'll get your turn." "My turn," Alicia repeated, feeling the first stirrings of anger. "I've been here for nearly a decade, leading some of the firm's biggest cases. How much longer am I supposed to wait?" David turned, his expression neutral, as though what he was about to say was perfectly reasonable. "You just need a bit more time. Evan's got some unique qualities that we're looking for at the partnership level." Alicia stared at him, the meaning behind his words sinking in. Unique qualities? What qualities could Evan possibly have that she didn't? David offered a thin smile. "I'm sure we'll be having this conversation about your promotion soon enough." But Alicia knew that wasn't true. She could see it now, the way her accomplishments were being diminished, the way the ladder was being pulled up just as she reached for it. "Thank you for your time," Alicia said, turning to leave. Her voice was steady, but inside a fire had been lit. As she walked back to her office, her mind was already working. She knew now that waiting for her turn wasn't going to change anything. It was time to fight for what she had earned. Alicia sat across from Jenna at their usual spot, a small cafe just a few blocks from the office. The hum of chatter and the hiss of espresso machines filled the space, but Alicia barely noticed. She stirred her coffee absently, her mind still replaying yesterday's promotion announcement. "I still can't believe it," Jenna said, leaning forward. "Evan, of all people." Alicia nodded, staring at the dark liquid swirling in her cup. "It doesn't make sense, not logically anyway." "Of course it doesn't. You've led bigger cases, brought in more clients, and won cases that no one thought we'd win." Jenna shook her head. "But it's not about that, is it?" Alicia sighed, finally setting her spoon down. "Apparently not. David said I just needed more time, that Evan has qualities they're looking for in a partner." "Qualities?" Jenna raised an eyebrow. "Let me guess. Qualities like being a white guy with the right connections?" Alicia looked up, a faint smile tugging at the corner of her mouth, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I didn't say it, but yeah." They sat in silence for a moment, both absorbing the weight of that unspoken truth. Alicia had always known it was there, lurking beneath the surface, but it was harder to ignore now. She wasn't just imagining it. "You know," Jenna began, more quietly now, "you're not the only one." Alicia's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "I mean, this isn't just about you. I've been passed over too. Twice, actually." Jenna's voice was calm, but her frustration was evident. "And I've talked to others. Marcus. He's been at the firm for 6 years, just like you. He's had stellar reviews, but no promotion. Linda in paralegal. Same story. This is a pattern, Alicia." Alicia felt a chill settle over her. "I didn't realize. Why would you? We all keep quiet about it. That's how they want it. But when you really start paying attention, it's obvious." Alicia stared out the cafe window, watching people pass by on the sidewalk. The pieces were starting to come together. She had always thought if she just worked harder, pushed further, she would break through. But if this was happening to others who were just as qualified, just as hardworking, then the problem wasn't their effort. It was something else entirely. "Why does no one talk about this openly?" Alicia asked, her voice low. Jenna shrugged. "Because no one wants to rock the boat. Everyone's afraid they'll be seen as a troublemaker, that they'll lose what little footing they have. And you know how the firm is with its image. They have those diversity initiatives. So on paper, everything looks fine, but look closer, and it's a different story." Alicia leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. She thought about the diversity workshops the firm held every year, the ones where everyone nodded along, but nothing ever really changed. She had gone along with it too, thinking that as long as she kept her head down and worked hard, things would shift. But now it was clear that the system was set up to keep people like her from advancing. "So what do we do?" Alicia asked, more to herself than to Jenna. Jenna's eyes flashed. "We fight." Alicia looked at her, surprised by the bluntness in her tone. "I'm serious," Jenna continued. "We can't just keep waiting for them to see our worth. They're not going to. We need to gather everyone who's been passed over, everyone who's been sidelined, start putting the pieces together. Once we have enough evidence, they won't be able to ignore it." Alicia felt a flicker of hope, but it was quickly followed by doubt. "You really think that'll work? Taking them on like that? Why not? They can't fire us all. And if we're organized, if we present the facts, actual patterns of bias, they'll have to address it. They've got reputations to protect, remember?" Alicia considered this. Jenna was right. Bainbridge and Associates prided itself on its public image. Progressive, diverse, inclusive. Exposing what was really happening behind the scenes would put that image at risk. And the firm's leadership, for all their resistance to real change, couldn't afford that kind of scandal. "It's risky," Alicia said finally, her voice cautious. "Everything's risky," Jenna replied. "But we can't just sit here and let this keep happening. I know it's not what you signed up for, but we're not going to get anywhere playing by their rules." Alicia took a deep breath, the weight of the decision settling in. She had worked her whole life to get to this point. Top of her class at Harvard, years of grueling hours, countless victories in the courtroom. But she wasn't here just to play it safe. She wanted more than just personal success. She wanted a seat at the table, and not just for herself. "You're right," Alicia said, meeting Jenna's gaze. "We need to fight." Jenna smiled, a look of determination crossing her face. "Good, because I already talked to Marcus. He's in, and Linda too. We're not alone in this." Alicia felt a shift inside her, a quiet resolve settling in. She wasn't just going to accept being passed over anymore. She wasn't going to let the firm get away with keeping people like her, and like Jenna, Marcus, and Linda, out of the positions they deserved. The fight was just beginning. Alicia stood in the corner of the law library at Bainbridge and Associates, flipping through old promotion records on her tablet. The quiet hum of the fluorescent lights above seemed to mirror the quiet hum of frustration she felt building inside her own. She was sifting through years of data, looking for a pattern, something concrete she could use. The coffee cup on the table next to her was half empty, forgotten. She had been working on this for hours now, and the deeper she dug, the more things started to come together. "Hey!" Jenna's voice interrupted her thoughts as she slipped into the seat across from her. "Any luck?" Alicia shook her head, scrolling through another list of names. "It's all the same. Every single person who's been promoted to partner in the last 5 years is either a white man or a woman connected to one of the partners." Jenna leaned forward, peering at the tablet. "What about performance reviews? Any inconsistencies there?" "That's the thing. People like us, people of color, women without connections, our reviews are always good. Above average, in fact. But when it comes to the actual promotions, we're just not considered." Jenna nodded slowly, eyes scanning the data. "So it's not about performance at all. It's about who fits into their idea of what a partner should be." Alicia sighed, closing the file on her tablet. "It's more than that. It's a system, a way to keep things exactly how they've always been." Jenna's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then back at Alicia. "Marcus is here. He said he'll meet us in the conference room." Alicia stood gathering her things. She had reached out to Marcus earlier in the week, and he had been quick to agree to talk. Marcus was sharp, hardworking, and one of the most capable attorneys at the firm. But like Alicia and Jenna, he had been repeatedly passed over for promotions. As they made their way to the conference room, Alicia's mind raced. This was starting to feel real. She had never thought she would be in a position where she'd have to confront her own firm like this. But it was clear there was no other way forward. Marcus was already sitting at the long mahogany table when they entered. He looked up and nodded as they walked in. "Hey," he said, his voice low. "I've been thinking about what you told me." Alicia and Jenna took seats across from him, and for a moment the room was filled with an uncomfortable silence. The stakes felt real now. "You know this could blow back on us," Marcus continued, his fingers tapping on the table. "They could make it really hard for us if we push this too far." Alicia met his gaze, nodding. "I know, but doing nothing hasn't exactly worked in our favor either." Marcus sighed, leaning back in his chair. "True. I've been here 6 years, just like you. I've brought in major clients, won major cases, and I've got nothing to show for it. Meanwhile, guys like Evan breeze through." "Exactly," Jenna added. "It's the same story for me, and it's not just us. Linda from Paralegal, she's been here forever, and she's been training every new hire, but she never gets a promotion." Marcus rubbed his temples, considering the situation. "So what's the plan?" Alicia pulled out her tablet again, turning it so Marcus could see the data she had collected. "We've started looking at the promotion history for the last 10 years. Every single person who's been promoted to partner fits a specific profile. You see it, right?" Marcus studied the screen, his expression hardening. "Yeah, white, male, or someone with a personal connection to the leadership. It's pretty blatant when you lay it out like this. And we've all been given the same excuses," Jenna said, "that we just need a bit more time or that the decision isn't about performance." Marcus nodded slowly. "I've heard that too. It's like they think they're doing us a favor by keeping us around. But when it comes to the top spots, we're not even in the running." "Exactly," Alicia said. "We need to gather more evidence, get more people on board. The more stories we have, the harder it'll be for them to dismiss this as just a few disgruntled employees." Marcus was quiet for a moment, then nodded. "I'm in. It's not like I've got anything to lose at this point." Alicia exhaled, feeling a small sense of relief. Having Marcus on board was a big step. He was well respected, and his voice would carry weight if they went public with this. "Good," Jenna said, her voice steady. "We've also spoken to Linda, and she's on board too. There are more people at this firm who've experienced this. They just need someone to lead the charge." "Then we do it together," Alicia said, leaning forward. "We'll gather everyone we can, put together the data, and bring it to Thomas." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Thomas? You really think he'll take this seriously?" Alicia hesitated. "I don't know, but if we show him the pattern, he'll have no choice. He's the managing partner. If this goes public, it'll damage the firm's reputation. He'll want to avoid that." Marcus nodded again, though there was skepticism in his eyes. "All right, I'm with you on this, but we've got to be smart about it. One wrong move, and they'll find a way to get rid of us." "We'll be careful," Jenna assured him, "but we can't stay quiet anymore. This is too big to ignore." The conversation shifted to logistics, who else they could approach, how to gather more information without drawing too much attention. By the time they finished, the sun had dipped below the horizon, and the office lights outside the conference room cast long shadows across the floor. As they stood to leave, Marcus turned to Alicia. You know, I didn't think I'd ever be in this position, but I'm glad we're doing something. Alicia smiled, a flicker of determination in her eyes. Me too. They left the conference room in silence, but the air between them was charged with purpose. It was no longer just about Alicia's promotion or Jenna's frustrations. This was about everyone who had been sidelined and overlooked, and the fight to change things had officially begun. Alicia sat in her office, a pile of case files stacked to one side, but her focus was entirely on the open spreadsheet in front of her. She had spent the better part of the last week compiling the data, promotion records, performance reviews, case outcomes. The more she worked, the clearer the pattern became, but with each new piece of evidence, the pit in her stomach deepened. Still at it? Jenna's voice broke the silence as she walked in and dropped into the chair across from Alicia's desk. Just making sure I've got everything lined up, Alicia replied, her eyes not leaving the screen. The last thing I want is for them to find any holes. Jenna leaned over, scanning the spreadsheet. You're being thorough, as usual. This is airtight, Alicia. No one can argue with this data. Alicia exhaled, finally leaning back in her chair. I hope so. It's just going up against the firm like this. It's not something I ever thought I'd be doing. Jenna smiled, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. None of us did, but this is bigger than just us now. Alicia nodded, knowing she was right. They weren't just fighting for their own careers anymore. This was about fairness, about opening doors for everyone who had been shut out. We're seeing Thomas today, she said, the nervousness creeping back into her voice. Do you think he'll listen? Jenna hesitated before answering. Thomas is pragmatic. He's not one to rock the boat unless he has to. But if we make it clear that this could blow up in the firm's face, publicly, I think he'll pay attention. Alicia closed the laptop, standing up. Let's hope you're right. The walk to Thomas Green's office felt longer than usual. Alicia's nerves buzzed, but she kept her expression calm. She had faced tougher things in courtrooms. This was just another challenge to overcome. When they arrived, Thomas, the managing partner, was sitting behind his large oak desk, looking over some papers. He glanced up as they entered, his expression neutral but expectant. Alicia, Jenna, he said, motioning for them to sit. What can I do for you? Alicia exchanged a brief look with Jenna before speaking. We appreciate you meeting with us. There's something important we need to discuss. Thomas leaned back in his chair, nodding. Go ahead. Alicia pulled out her laptop and set it on the table between them. She clicked through a few files before turning the screen toward Thomas. We've been reviewing the firm's promotion history over the last 10 years. There's a pattern, one that's hard to ignore. Thomas raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything yet. Alicia took that as her cue to continue. For years now, the promotions to partner have followed a specific profile. White men mostly. A few women, but only those with personal connections to the leadership. Meanwhile, attorneys like myself, Jenna, Marcus, and several others, attorneys with strong performance records, have been passed over repeatedly. Thomas leaned forward, his eyes narrowing slightly as he scanned the data on the screen. And what exactly are you suggesting? Alicia kept her voice steady. We're suggesting that there's a bias in how the firm promotes its partners. A systemic bias that favors certain people over others, regardless of performance. There was a long pause. Thomas's fingers drummed lightly on his desk, his expression unreadable. Finally, he looked up. This is a serious accusation, Alicia. It's not an accusation. It's a fact, Jenna said, her voice calm but firm. We're showing you the numbers. They speak for themselves. Thomas studied them both for a moment, then turned his attention back to the screen. And what do you expect me to do with this information? Alicia didn't hesitate. We need an investigation, an independent one. We're not asking for anything unreasonable. All we want is a fair review of how promotions have been handled and why certain people who've clearly earned it are being overlooked. Thomas sighed, rubbing his temples. You know this could be damaging to the firm's reputation, right? Publicly airing something like this, it won't just affect you, it could affect everyone here. Alicia swallowed but didn't back down. We're aware of that, but doing nothing is worse. This firm has built its reputation on being inclusive, progressive. If this gets out, if the pattern we've found becomes public, it could be a lot more damaging than handling it internally. Thomas didn't respond immediately. He sat back in his chair, thinking. The silence in the room stretched out, thick with tension. Finally, he spoke. You're asking a lot, Alicia. An investigation like this, it's not something we can take lightly. But, he added, raising a hand before they could interrupt, I also can't ignore what you've shown me here. The numbers don't lie. Alicia felt a small flicker of hope. So you'll consider it? Thomas nodded slowly. I'll consider it. I'll need to speak with the other partners first. If we do move forward, it'll be with an independent third party, someone with no ties to the firm. Is that acceptable? Alicia exhaled, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. That's exactly what we're asking for. Thomas stood, signaling the end of the meeting. I'll be in touch once I've spoken to the others. But keep in mind, this isn't going to be a quick process, and there may be resistance. We're prepared for that, Jenna said, standing with Alicia. As they left his office, the weight of what they had just set in motion hung heavy in the air. They had managed to get Thomas to agree to consider an investigation, but that was only the first step. The hardest part was still ahead. Back in her office, Alicia sat down, feeling the exhaustion settle in. She hadn't realized how much the anticipation had drained her. She glanced at her phone and saw a message from Marcus. How did it go? She quickly typed back. He's considering it. We'll know more soon. Jenna leaned against the door frame of Alicia's office. You think he'll follow through? Alicia looked up, her expression tired but determined. He will. He has to. Once the other partners see the data, they'll know they can't ignore this. Jenna smiled faintly. One step at a time, right? One step at a time, Alicia repeated, knowing that the hardest steps were still to come. The atmosphere at Bainbridge and Associates had shifted, though most people couldn't quite put their finger on it. Alicia, however, could feel the tension every time she walked into the office. It was subtle, polite smiles that didn't quite reach people's eyes, the faint pauses in conversations as she passed by. The investigation into the firm's promotion practices hadn't even begun yet, but the rumors were already spreading. Jenna dropped into the chair across from Alicia's desk. You can feel it, right? Alicia looked up from the document she was reviewing, her eyes tired. Yeah, everyone's on edge. You think Thomas told the partners? Jenna shrugged. Probably. He wouldn't move forward without getting them on board. It's a huge risk for the firm, and they know it. Alicia sighed, closing the folder in front of her. I thought it would feel better once we got them to agree to the investigation, but now it feels like we're waiting for something to go wrong. Jenna nodded. It's always like that. They'll push back, try to make us doubt ourselves, but we have to stay focused. The investigator's coming in next week, right? Yeah, Monica Liu. She's supposed to be thorough and neutral. I just hope she can see through the noise. Jenna leaned forward, lowering her voice slightly. She will, and once she starts digging, they won't be able to hide behind their excuses anymore. Later that afternoon, Alicia was in the break room when she felt someone approach behind her. She turned and found herself face to face with David Preston. His smile was as polished as ever, but there was something off about it, something cold. Alicia, he said smoothly. Got a minute? She straightened, forcing herself to stay calm. Of course, David stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. I've been hearing things, rumors about an investigation. Alicia didn't blink. They're not rumors. The firm is looking into promotion practices. David's smile didn't falter, but there was a sharpness in his eyes now. That's a bold move. You've been doing well here, Alicia. Building a reputation? This kind of thing. It could derail everything you've worked for. Alicia's heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. I'm not afraid of doing what's right. This isn't just about me. David chuckled softly, but there was no warmth in it. It's always about you, whether you realize it or not. You make too much noise. People start seeing you as a problem, and problems get solved. Alicia narrowed her eyes, her pulse quickening. Is that a threat, David? His smile widened slightly, but his eyes remained cold. Not at all. Just some friendly advice. Be careful. The firm values discretion. You wouldn't want to make enemies here. Alicia felt a wave of anger rise in her chest, but she swallowed it down. I think the firm values integrity more than you think. David's expression hardened for a fraction of a second, then returned to its usual polished mask. We'll see, he said, before turning and walking out of the break room. Alicia stood there, her hands gripping the edge of the counter. She had expected resistance, but David's words were more than just a warning. They were a reminder of the power dynamics at play. No matter how strong her case, no matter how right she was, people like David would do everything they could to maintain control. That evening, Alicia and Jenna met up with Marcus and Linda in a quiet corner of a nearby cafe. The atmosphere was more subdued than usual, the weight of what they were up against hanging in the air. David confronted me today, Alicia said, setting down her coffee cup. Tried to make me back off. Marcus frowned, his arms crossed. He's scared. He knows what's at stake for him if this goes through. Yeah, but that doesn't mean he won't try to sabotage it, Jenna added. We've all seen how he operates. He's not the kind of person to play fair. Linda, who had been quiet up until now, spoke up. We can't let him intimidate us. If we back down now, nothing will ever change. Alicia nodded. I'm not backing down, but we have to be careful. David's playing a different game, and he's not going to fight fair. He's going to try to make us look like the problem. That's why we need Monica, Marcus said. She's coming in next week, right? Alicia nodded. Yeah, once she starts the investigation, things will get even more tense around here. But we have to trust the process. Jenna leaned forward, her voice quiet but firm. We've got each other's backs. That's what matters. They can't come after all of us. Alicia felt a surge of gratitude for the people around her. They were risking a lot too, maybe even more than she was. But they were in this together, and that gave her strength. The next few days passed in a haze of meetings and casework, but the tension in the office only grew. People whispered in hallways, glancing at Alicia and the others when they thought no one was looking. It was clear that word had spread, and everyone knew that something big was about to happen. By the time Friday rolled around, Alicia felt the weight of the week pressing down on her. She was sitting at her desk trying to focus on the legal brief in front of her when her phone buzzed with a new email. It was from Thomas. Monica Liu will be arriving on Monday to begin the investigation. Please be prepared to meet with her at 10 a.m. Alicia stared at the screen, feeling a mixture of relief and anxiety. It was happening. There was no turning back now. Monday came quickly, and the office felt even more strained than before. Alicia arrived early, reviewing her notes and preparing for her meeting with Monica. When 10 a.m. finally rolled around, she walked into the conference room, her nerves tightly wound. Monica Liu was already there, sitting at the long table with a calm, professional demeanor. She was in her late 30s with sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. She gestured for Alicia to sit. Thank you for meeting with me, Ms. King, Monica said, her voice steady. I understand you have been a key figure in bringing this issue to light. Alicia nodded, sitting down across from her. I've been working with several colleagues to compile evidence. We've noticed a pattern in the firm's promotion practices. Monica glanced down at her notes, then back up at Alicia. I'll be reviewing all of the documentation you have provided. I want to assure you that this will be a thorough investigation, and I'll be speaking with everyone involved. This process is about finding the truth, whatever that may be. Alicia felt a small wave of relief. Monica's professionalism and calm demeanor gave her confidence that this wouldn't be swept under the rug. That's all we want, the truth. Monica nodded, her expression serious. Good, then let's begin. As Alicia walked out of the conference room, she felt the weight of the moment settle in. The investigation had officially begun, and the stakes had never been higher. David's warnings still echoed in her mind, but she pushed them aside. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about everyone who had been passed over, ignored, or silenced, and she wasn't going to let them down. Alicia sat at her desk, fingers tapping nervously on her keyboard, though her eyes weren't focused on the screen in front of her. Monica Liu had been in the office for a few days now, and each interview seemed to bring a new ripple of tension through Bainbridge and Associates. Alicia could feel it in the air, the watchful glances, the quiet whispers that fell silent as soon as she walked by. Her phone buzzed on the desk, breaking her thoughts. It was a message from Jenna. Just finished my interview with Monica. She doesn't miss a thing. How are you holding up? Alicia typed a quick response. Holding steady. I'm meeting with her again this afternoon. Jenna replied almost instantly. Good. Let's catch up later. Alicia put her phone down and took a deep breath. She had already spoken to Monica once, providing her with all the data she had collected. But Monica was thorough, and she wanted to go deeper. The investigator was digging into every corner of the firm's promotion history, speaking with not just the attorneys, but support staff, paralegals, and even HR. No stone was left unturned. As the clock ticked closer to her next meeting with Monica, Alicia's thoughts drifted back to her conversation with David Preston a few days ago. His words still rang in her mind, quiet but insidious. He had tried to rattle her, but she wouldn't let him. Not now. At 2:00 p.m. sharp, Alicia walked into the conference room where Monica was seated, a stack of papers in front of her. Monica looked up as Alicia entered, offering a brief professional nod. Thank you for coming in again, Alicia, Monica said, gesturing to the chair across from her. Alicia sat, clasping her hands together in her lap. Of course. How's the investigation going? Monica leaned back slightly, her eyes sharp and focused. We're making progress. I've spoken with several employees, and I've reviewed the data you provided. There's a clear pattern here, one that aligns with what you've described. Alicia felt a flicker of hope. So you're seeing the bias? Monica nodded. I am. The numbers don't lie. Promotions have consistently favored a particular group, despite performance reviews and other metrics suggesting that other employees, yourself included, were more qualified. Alicia let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. That's what we've been saying. It's not just about individual performance. It's systemic. Monica's expression remained neutral, though her tone softened slightly. I'm aware I've also spoken with several of your colleagues, including Jenna, Marcus, and Linda. Their experiences mirror yours. It's clear that something is wrong within the firm's promotion process. Alicia's heart pounded. This was what they had been waiting for. Validation, proof that what they had experienced wasn't just paranoia or frustration. It was real, and now someone from outside the firm was confirming it. David Preston, Alicia asked carefully. Have you spoken to him yet? Monica's eyes flickered, but she remained composed. I have. Mr. Preston was cooperative, but his explanations for the promotion decisions were vague at best. He cited intangibles, qualities that are difficult to quantify, but that, in his opinion, made certain candidates more suitable for partnership. Alicia's jaw tightened. Intangibles, she repeated, her voice tinged with disbelief. That's what he said to me too. Yes, Monica replied, flipping through her notes. But what's telling is that the intangibles he described are consistently attributed to a very narrow group of people. It's not about their actual work, but about how they fit into the firm's culture. Alicia's mind flashed back to her conversations with Jenna and Marcus, and all the times they had been told to wait, to be patient, to prove themselves in ways that were never quite defined. What happens next? Alicia asked, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside her. Monica paused, considering her words. I'll be compiling my findings and presenting a formal report to Thomas Green and the partners. My recommendation will be to implement a complete overhaul of the firm's promotion process, including third-party oversight to ensure fairness and transparency moving forward. Alicia blinked, her pulse quickening. An overhaul? Yes, Monica said firmly. The system, as it stands, is broken. If the firm wants to maintain its reputation and avoid potential legal ramifications, it will need to make significant changes. Alicia nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and apprehension. This was exactly what she had hoped for, but it also meant that the firm's leadership would be forced to confront its own failures. And David Preston wasn't the kind of man who would take that lightly. Thank you, Alicia said, her voice soft but sincere, for taking this seriously. Monica gave a small nod. It's my job to find the truth, and the truth is clear. I'll be in touch once the report is finalized. As Alicia left the conference room, she found herself feeling lighter, even as the weight of the situation pressed on her shoulders. She texted Jenna and Marcus to update them. Monica's recommending a full overhaul of the promotion process. It's real. Marcus responded first. About time. Let's see if they actually follow through. Jenna chimed in next. This is huge. Meet after work? We need to plan our next steps. Alicia agreed, already knowing that the next phase of their fight was about to begin. It wasn't enough for Monica to make her recommendations. They had to make sure the firm implemented them and held people like David accountable for their actions. That evening, the group gathered at the same cafe they had been meeting at for weeks now. The mood was tense but hopeful, the knowledge that real change might finally be within their grasp, giving them a renewed sense of purpose. So, Monica's on our side, Jenna said, her voice low but filled with a conviction. That's a huge win. It is, Marcus agreed. But the partners still have to sign off on this, and you know they'll push back, especially David. Alicia nodded, sipping her coffee. Monica said as much. The firm's reputation is at stake, and they all want to control the narrative. They might try to downplay the findings or claim they're already working on improvements, which means we need to be ready to push back, Jenna said. We've got the data. We've got Monica's support. We can't let them sweep this under the rug. Linda, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. What about David? He's the one who's been behind all of this, right? He's not just going to sit back and let this happen. Alicia's expression darkened slightly. He won't. But if Monica's report is as damning as it sounds, they'll have no choice but to address his role. He's already under scrutiny. Once the partners see the full picture, they'll have to act. Marcus leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. I hope you're right, but David's a survivor. He'll fight tooth and nail to keep his position. Jenna met Alicia's gaze, her expression determined. Then we'll fight harder. We've come too far to back down now. Alicia nodded, the fire in her chest reigniting. She wasn't afraid anymore, not of David, not of the firm, not of what might happen next. The truth was out there now, and no matter how much resistance they faced, they had momentum on their side. They would see this through. The office buzzed with quiet tension as word spread that Monica Liu had submitted her final report to Thomas Green and the senior partners. Alicia could feel the atmosphere shift, the weight of anticipation pressing down on everyone. Eyes followed her as she walked through the hallways, but no one said anything out loud. They didn't need to. Everyone knew something big was about to happen. Jenna caught up with Alicia by the elevators. Thomas has called an emergency partners meeting. she whispered. You think they're finally going to do something about David? Alicia pressed the button for the elevator, her mind racing. They have to. Monica's report was clear. David's been manipulating the promotion process for years. They can't ignore it. The elevator doors opened and they stepped inside. As the doors slid shut, Jenna leaned in. I heard from Linda that David's been in and out of Thomas's office all morning. Apparently he's not taking this well. Alicia wasn't surprised. David Preston wasn't the kind of man to quietly accept consequences for his actions. He had built his entire career on controlling the narrative, on positioning himself as indispensable to the firm. But now the cracks were showing. When they reached their floor, the office felt unusually quiet. It was as if everyone was waiting, holding their breath for what would happen next. Let's meet later, Alicia said to Jenna as they parted ways. I need to prepare for whatever comes out of this meeting. By the time the partners' meeting was over, it was well into the afternoon. Alicia had been sitting in her office trying to focus on her work when her phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. David's out. Thomas just announced it. Her breath caught. Out? She quickly typed a response. What happened? Marcus replied, Thomas said David's been placed on leave pending an internal review, but we all know what that means. He's done. Alicia sat back in her chair, the realization hitting her all at once. It was happening. David Preston, the man who had stood in her way, who had undermined her and so many others, was finally being held accountable. It felt surreal, almost too good to be true. Her door opened, and Jenna walked in, her face alight with a mix of triumph and disbelief. Did you hear? Marcus just texted me, Alicia said, standing up. David's on leave? That's the official line, Jenna said, leaning against the doorframe. But it's more than that. They're negotiating his exit. He's being bought out. Alicia's eyes widened. Bought out? Jenna nodded. Yeah, it's over for him, Alicia. They're getting rid of him quietly, but he's done here. Alicia felt a strange mixture of emotions wash over her. Relief, yes, but also a kind of numbness. After everything, after all the fights, the sleepless nights, the frustration, David was finally being removed from the firm. But there was no grand confrontation, no dramatic scene, just a quiet, almost clinical resolution. What about the rest of the report? Alicia asked. The recommendations for changing the promotion process? They're implementing them, Jenna said. Thomas announced it right after he mentioned David's leave. Independent oversight, new criteria for promotions. Everything we push for, it's happening. Alicia leaned against her desk, the weight of the moment sinking in. It was what they had fought for, what they had risked their careers for. But now that it was here, the victory felt strangely hollow. Are you okay? Jenna asked, her voice softening. Alicia blinked, snapping out of her thoughts. Yeah, I'm just processing. Jenna stepped closer, her expression understanding. I get it. It's not the way we imagined it, is it? No, Alicia admitted. I thought it would feel different. Like, I don't know, like there'd be some kind of justice, but it feels like David's getting away with it. Jenna sighed. In a way he is. He won't face any real consequences. He'll get his payout and move on to another firm. But the important thing is that we stopped him from doing more damage here, and we've changed the system for everyone who comes after us. Alicia nodded, knowing Jenna was right. This was bigger than David Preston. They had exposed the bias in the firm, and now real change was happening. Still, it was hard to shake the feeling that David's quiet exit didn't fully match the harm he had caused. A few hours later, Alicia was packing up her things when a knock on her door startled her. She looked up to see Thomas Green standing in the doorway, his expression unreadable. Do you have a minute? He asked. Alicia nodded, setting her bag down and gesturing for him to sit. Thomas entered the office but didn't sit. Instead, he stood near her desk, his hands clasped in front of him. I wanted to thank you for bringing this issue to our attention. Alicia raised an eyebrow. And thank me? Thomas sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. I know it wasn't easy, and I know you've faced pushback, but what you did, it's going to make this firm better, stronger. Alicia remained quiet, unsure of how to respond. She had never seen Thomas this candid before. There was always a layer of professionalism, of diplomacy, that made it hard to tell what he was really thinking. David was, well, you know what he was, Thomas continued, his tone heavy, but he's gone now, and we're going to make sure what happened under his watch never happens again. That's what we wanted, Alicia said simply, a fair process for everyone. And that's what we're going to give you, Thomas replied. The changes are already in motion, but I want you to know that if you ever feel like something's not right, my door is open. Alicia nodded, appreciating the gesture, but knowing it would take time for trust to be fully restored. Thank you. Thomas gave her a small, tight smile before turning to leave. We'll get through this, together. As the door closed behind him, Alicia sat down, letting out a long breath. It wasn't a perfect resolution, far from it. but it was progress, real progress. Later that evening, Alicia met with Jenna, Marcus, and Linda at their usual cafe. The mood was lighter than it had been in weeks, though there was still an undercurrent of exhaustion. "So, David's officially gone," Marcus said, raising his coffee cup. "To the end of an era. More like the end of a nightmare," Jenna muttered, though she smiled as she said it. Alicia chuckled, sipping her tea. "I'll drink to that." Linda leaned forward, her expression thoughtful. "What's next for us? We've won, but what happens now?" Alicia looked around the table at her friends, the people who had stood by her through this fight. "We keep going," she said quietly. "We make sure the changes stick. We make sure no one else has to go through what we did." Jenna nodded in agreement. "And if anyone tries to pull the same nonsense again, we'll be ready." Alicia smiled, feeling a sense of quiet satisfaction. The battle with David was over. But the fight for fairness wasn't. They had broken the old system, and now it was their job to help build something better. "Here's to the future," Marcus said, raising his cup again. They clinked their cups together, a small but meaningful toast to everything they had accomplished and everything they still had left to do. Alicia stood by the window of her new office, gazing out at the city skyline. It was a view she had admired countless times before, but now it felt different. She felt different. The plaque on her door now read, "Alicia King, Partner," something she had worked years to achieve, though the path had been far from what she expected. The office was still quiet, the hum of the city beyond the glass the only noise in Ripa. She had been given her new position with little fanfare, a stark contrast to the years of fighting, the endless tension, and the weight of uncertainty she had carried. It wasn't a victory parade, it was just another step forward. There was a knock at her door. She turned to see Jenna standing there, leaning against the frame with a small smile. "Nice office," Jenna said, stepping inside. "Fits you." Alicia chuckled softly, running a hand along the edge of her desk. "I'm still getting used to it. It doesn't quite feel real yet." Jenna dropped into one of the chairs in front of the desk. "I know what you mean. After everything, it feels like the dust should have settled by now, but it still feels weird." Alicia nodded, sitting across from her. "Yeah, we won, but it doesn't feel like we're done." "That's because we're not," Jenna said, her tone more serious now. "The system's changing, but we have to make sure it stays that way. There's still a lot of work ahead." Alicia smiled faintly. "I know. It's just strange. I thought when I finally made partner, it would feel like the end of the journey, like everything would be perfect. But now that I'm here, I see how much more there is to come." Jenna leaned back, crossing her arms. "That's because you're not the kind of person who just stops when she gets what she wants. You didn't fight for this just for you, Alicia. You fought for all of us." Alicia looked down, letting Jenna's words sink in. It was true, she hadn't just been fighting for her own promotion. The real victory was in the changes they had forced within the firm. The independent oversight, the new criteria for promotions, the dismantling of the old biased system. But it was hard not to think about how long it had taken, how much resistance they had faced along the way. "It feels like there's still so much we have to watch over," Alicia said. "Like the system's fragile, and if we don't stay vigilant, it'll slip back into the same old patterns." Jenna nodded. "It's fragile, but we've built something better. And that's what matters. We've shown that the old way isn't the only way." Alicia met Jenna's gaze, her friend's steady confidence reassuring her. "We did, and we'll keep pushing, making sure it sticks." Jenna grinned. "And now you get to do it with a partner title on your door." Alicia laughed, shaking her head. "I guess so. It's still weird seeing that." "Get used to it," Jenna said, standing up and giving Alicia's desk a light tap. "You earned it." Later that afternoon, Thomas Green came by Alicia's office for a quick word. He was his usual composed self, though there was a shift in the way he spoke to her now, more measured, perhaps even a little cautious. The balance of power had changed, and Alicia could feel it. "I just wanted to check in, see how you're settling into the new role," Thomas said, standing just inside her door. Alicia smiled politely. "Everything's good so far. I'm getting my feet under me." Thomas nodded, his eyes scanning the room briefly before landing on her again. "Good to hear. I also wanted to let you know that we're moving forward with the recommendations Monica Liu outlined. The independent oversight will be in place next quarter." "That's good," Alicia replied, her tone professional. "It's important that those changes are implemented." Thomas's expression tightened slightly, but he nodded. "I agree. It'll be an adjustment for everyone, but it's necessary." There was a brief pause, the air between them thick with the unspoken acknowledgement of what had transpired. Thomas wasn't someone who showed emotion easily, but Alicia could sense his discomfort. He knew the firm had been forced to confront things it had long ignored, and Alicia had been the catalyst. "Thank you," Alicia said, breaking the silence. for listening, and for acting on what needed to change. Thomas gave her a small nod, almost relieved that the conversation hadn't turned confrontational. You were right to push for it. The firm will be better for it in the long run. As he left her office, Alicia sat back in her chair, exhaling slowly. It was still strange hearing those words from someone like Thomas. For so long, it had felt like the firm's leadership had been against her, resistant to change. Now they were forced to acknowledge that the old ways were no longer acceptable. That evening, Alicia met Jenna, Marcus, and Linda for a quiet celebration at their usual cafe. The mood was lighter than it had been in months, and there was a sense of closure, even if the work wasn't truly over. Partner King, Marcus teased as Alicia sat down, raising his coffee cup in a mock toast. How's the view from the top? Alicia laughed, rolling her eyes. I'm still getting used to it. It's not as glamorous as it sounds. Yeah, well, you deserve every bit of it, Linda said, smiling warmly. We all do. Jenna raised her cup, her eyes twinkling, to breaking barriers and to making sure they stay broken. They clinked their cups together, a small but meaningful gesture that acknowledged the journey they had been on together. So, what's next for us? Linda asked, leaning back in her chair. Now that we've won, Alicia looked around the table at her friends, her allies in this fight, and smiled. We keep going. We make sure the system works the way it's supposed to, and we don't let anyone forget why we fought in the first place. Marcus nodded. And if anyone tries to pull the same old tricks again, we'll be there to stop them. Exactly, Jenna said. This was just the beginning. Alicia sat quietly for a moment, feeling the weight of everything they had accomplished, but also the promise of what lay ahead. There was still work to be done, still battles to fight, but for the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful. They had broken through the glass ceiling, and now they were building something stronger, something more just. As they sat together, talking and laughing, Alicia knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. And this time, they wouldn't be stopped.